Hi, I'm Frankie. Today, I would like to share with you my experience delivering a paper on implementing the POKM Journey, the practice of knowledge management journey, and facilitating 2 field visits for international participants from national productivity organizations. Now, this engagement took place from 3rd September to the 6th September 2007. And to begin with, I would like to highlight that the organizer for this entire program did a fantastic job coordinating and ensuring, of course, ultimately the success of the program. The name of this organizer is National Productivity Corporation, and these guys really did a great job. Now, the official program title as given here is Workshop on Knowledge Management Consultancy, Enhancing National Productivity Organizations Core Competency. The objective: to strengthen the knowledge management consultancy capabilities of these national productivity organizations. Secondly, I also want to highlight that the 5 overseas resource speakers delivered very interesting and very practical papers relating to all the main aspects of knowledge management consultancy. And these 5 resource speakers were, firstly, Dr. Serafin from Philippines. Second, Patrick Lambie from Singapore. Third, Alvin Santa Rosa from the Philippines. And Helena Cruz from Philippines. And finally, Ronald Young from the United Kingdom. Lastly, I have to mention that the active participation from all the international participants representing the 10 major countries actually contributed hugely to the success of this program. And I would like to just quickly mention the names of the organizations that sponsored participants to this program. Alright, and the first one you can see here from Taiwan, we had China Productivity Center. And from India, we had participants from the National Productivity Council. And from Indonesia, we had 2 participants, one from Bandung Institute of Technology, and the second from the Ministry of Manpower and Transmigration, Republic of Indonesia. And from Republic of Korea, we had 2 participants, one from Korea Management 7 Technology Consultant Association, and second, Korea Productivity Center. And from Malaysia, we have one that's from National Productivity Corporation. And from Mongolia, we had 1 participant from the Bagano Joint Stock Company. And from Pakistan, 2 participants from the National Productivity Organization Pakistan. And from Singapore, we had 3 participants. 1, Quality Quest Solutions. Second, Consulting 1. And third, Hotlink System and Services. And finally, last 2, Sri Lanka, we had 1 international participant from the Sri Lanka Institute of Development Administration. And then finally, the last 2 participants were from Vietnam. One from the Vietnam Productivity Center and the other one from the Directorate of Standards and Quality in Vietnam. Now, these were the 17 participants from the 10 countries. Alright, now, next. The major focus of my sharing session is to share with you the 10 key observations that I made throughout the entire program relating to knowledge management consultancy in this Asian region. Alright, now, so here I've listed the 10 key observations, and first of all, top of the list, all the participants agreed that one of the concern to address would be to strengthen consulting capabilities of the NPOs, and that's good. Essentially, this observation were voiced by majority of the participants. So, in actual fact, that was the intended purpose of the program. So, essentially, at the end of the program, all the participants agreed that indeed, in the program, they managed to gather very practical ideas on the tools, the techniques, the approaches to be used to deliver or to implement and deploy consultancy in the area of knowledge management. The second feedback or observation that I made was this: enhance consulting output. What does it mean? What it means to say is that for the clients, for the industry to really get buy-in into this KM consulting, it is important that the deliverables of this assignment must be quantifiable and must relate ultimately to the focus of the organization. And that was the second observations that was agreed generally by most of us here. The third observation I made was this: various countries had different perception of what the practice of knowledge management is really all about. And so because of the various level of perceptions and various level of understanding of knowledge management, in order that KM assignments can even be initiated, so the early sharing or familiarization on knowledge management becomes very important. And so my observation was that to ensure that KM assignments can be effectively deployed in the various countries that I've just mentioned earlier on, it's important that familiarization session, awareness session have to be carried out. And this was generally agreed by most of the participants. The fourth observation I made, quite interesting, agreed by most of them, the participants, was this: that they reckon that knowledge management practices is not about technology. Though we all agree that in actual fact, technology is indeed a powerful enabler to drive it. But essentially, the practice of knowledge management is really about critical capabilities of people, mindsets of people, habits of people wanting to manage critical knowledge to drive sustainable performance. And then technology will be used as the enabler to ensure that it can really sustain, ensure that it can springboard to a next level here. And this was what was observed. And also, point number 4, most of the participants agreed to this observation. Observation number 5 that I made, quite connected to the one I mentioned at point 2 just now, and that is establish measurement indicators. Many of the participants said, and the feedback was this, essentially for any assignment, of course including knowledge management practices assignment, to be successful, there must be very strict, quantifiable measurement indicator to support the fact that if organization invest time, invest money and efforts in managing knowledge, it definitely can give rise to some quantifiable results relating to enhancing operational excellence, increasing customer responsiveness, and at the same time accelerating innovation intensity. The 3 major value proposition of adopting the practice of KM. So this was quite cool, and it's correct. And that's how I feel myself too, because in actual fact, to make any assignment successful, it's important that companies must be clear about both the progress measurement indicators and the impact measurement indicators. All right. The next observation, that's observation number 6, that many of them highlighted. All right. What's this? For POKM to really be sustainable, it must be integrated with other initiatives, Here I would like to elaborate slightly now, and that's important. In our mind, to have a greater and a sharper perspective of the practice of KM, it goes like this. In an organization, to achieve specific goals, what organizations would do is, on one side, they will set up what we call as official departments and official functions. So the functions are set up, the departments are established to support and to achieve what we call as objective or goals. So these are like vertical pillars put in place to support, to achieve goals. Now, besides putting in place official departments, what happens is this: the companies will also put in place a series of initiatives or projects. And these are also vertical pillars to support and to achieve objective. So you could have, for instance, an IT project or a health and safety project, for instance, for the matter. So all these are called initiatives and projects. But the practice of knowledge management is not what we call as a project. It is a journey. So if you look at a diagram like this, the others are vertical pillars directly supporting objective. However, the practice of knowledge management is a journey. So it's not vertical, it is horizontal. It is right at the bottom. It is the fundamental, right, that is put in place to complement, to support all the other projects in the company, to support all the other departments in the organization. Because the focus of the practice of knowledge management is to ensure that project members or departmental staff, all of them, are self-driven, proactive, collaborative, and innovative with regard to systematically managing critical knowledge to achieve objective. So, in a practice of KM, there is a starting point. We initiate journey. There is no ending point. Why? Because it's a continuous process of ensuring that sustainable performance are not only achieved, but you move on to become breakthrough and keep on moving to the next level of excellence. But projects have lifespan. You have a starting point, it has an ending point. So many of these projects were put in place, when it finish, it's taken off. Next one comes in, finish, taken off. But however, right at the bottom, the fundamental is known as the practice of knowledge management as a journey. So in other words, you can see many projects are great projects, but because the company is practicing people management, meaning to say they are chasing people to try projects. That's why many projects don't work, because they have to chase people to deliver the projects. So if you want that project to be successful, the people must not be chased. Because of this, right at the bottom, we put in place the practice of knowledge management that will equip project team members to be more self-driven, proactive, to actually drive their projects by managing their own critical knowledge and managing their own team's knowledge. All right. Now, so just to elaborate on this. Yeah. So, which I agree. This observation is good. I agree to this. And number 7, of course, straightforward, that many of them mentioned. And this is also my observation number 7, that of course, for the practice of knowledge management to even be initiated, and of course they to be sustainable, it has to be tied to the company's corporate objective and company's goals. Yeah. And the observation number 8 is this. Many of them felt that really POKM must be seen as a way of corporate work life. That is very good. Essentially, this is what happens. Generally, the practice of knowledge management will start in certain function, then it escalates to include other functions within the organization. So of course, eventually, in the longer term, the practice of knowledge management must then be integrated and institutionalized to become the corporate culture of the company officially. And this is also connected to my observation number 9 that say, start small, think big. And it's important. In fact, many initiatives on knowledge management, KM, failed. Because when they start knowledge management, first, they look at knowledge management as knowledge management system. They look at it as knowledge management infrastructure. So normally many companies will start with this knowledge portal, a big bang, big, huge, and then dies off very quickly. Why? Because we know that knowledge management, it's not technology. It is mindsets, habits, capabilities of people. So start small, meaning to say that when we start the practice of knowledge management, we have to identify critical function, a critical project team with clear, specific goals. We have to identify a small group of PC members or practicing community members, from minimum 3 to 5 to 10 to 12 of these people, to kickstart or to initiate the practice. So when the practice starts moving, what do? We then capture success stories in this small 10 to 12 members here, community, and highlight this and promote these success stories to other functions. Right? So when they see, gosh, this is really working, then they'll get gradual buy-in from the various departments and the various functions. So it always starts small. Then it will grow gradually. When it comes to some time whereby you have lots of proven success story, then it goes exponential. Right now. So we have to start small. Think big, meaning to say, yes, we must be clear. Eventually the entire focus will be to cover the entire organization. So it's very common to be successful. It's very common that companies starts with a group of 10, 12 people, and eventually perhaps 2 or even 3 years later, everyone, all employees, all the talents in the organization eventually adopt and institutionalize the practice of knowledge management. And the last observation, quite interesting, a majority of the organizations that participated in the program representing the 10 countries in Asia highlighted this. And they say that in my country, generally, there is quite a lack of knowledge management education, suggesting therefore that the various universities, this is 2007, of course over the years things may have changed, but at a point of time, 2007, suggesting that many universities in majority of the Asian countries I've just mentioned did not have then what we call as a degree, a first degree in knowledge management or a master's degree in knowledge management, and not a lot of people were even doing doctoral or PhD studies in this area as compared to the other disciplines or the other managerial discipline. Alright, so this was the last observation that I made. So overall, today I just want to highlight to you, interestingly, these were the 10 key observations that I made throughout this entire program, and these represented generally the formal and sometimes during informal chit-chat, the informal opinions of the participants. And over the years, from 2007 until now, 2016, over the years, I found that all these 10 observations made way back at a point of time, they were very consistent. Until now, they are consistent with many of the findings that I have derived in many of the programs I run, whether it's in Malaysia or in this particular region. Alright, this is just one sharing session I want to highlight to you. Now, and then finally, I just want to make a mention that on let's say a 5th of September, I facilitated for this group of international participants 2 field visits. In fact, they were pretty impressed with the field visit. The first field visit, I brought them to Sunway Sunway Services. They call it Sunway Shared Services, yes. Sunway Shared Services Center. Yeah. So when they visited this place, because at the point of time, Sunway Shared Services Center, the point of time was my client, my knowledge management client, we deployed for them the practice of knowledge management. And what happened was that when they were there, they were given a very impressive presentation by Sunway relating to a technology model to drive the practice of knowledge management. So they were treated to a lot of jargons perhaps relating to how technology can be put in place to drive all the 8 key focus, it's not here, all the 8 key focus in the practice of knowledge management. Alright, a lot of questions were asked, and a lot of those tools that developed then were quite advanced. It was way back in 2007. And then later on, the second field visit, I brought them to my center. Alright, and I shared with them the model, the practice of knowledge management model that I conceptualized in 1996. And I shared with them the 8 key focus in the practice of knowledge management. Alright, and of course, the 8 key focus in this practice consists of, firstly, knowledge identification, and you can see right here all the wordings here. Your knowledge identification, then you have your knowledge acquisition, knowledge application, knowledge sharing, knowledge development, knowledge innovation, knowledge preservation, and knowledge management. So I shared with them the models and the work that I did. Overall, I find this particular engagement to be satisfying, and of course at the end of the day, I also got to have a good insight as to how the international participants perceive knowledge management to be at a point of time. And over the years, as I said, many of the perception are still quite consistent until this very day. Alright, now, so with this, I really thank you for taking time off on your side to be with me in this sharing session, and I look forward to having you again in my very near future to attend my other sharing sessions. Alright, so with this, I am Frankie signing off. Alright, and most important, cheers and bye-bye to all of you. See you soon.